We thought it was a joke, a silly Vegas stunt, until the mail came and I realized we were legally married, and suddenly everything changed. I never thought a weekend in Vegas would change my life forever, but here I was, standing in a tiny neon-lit chapel, laughing so hard my cheeks hurt, clutching the hand of my best friend Ryan, who looked equally ridiculous in a rented tux that was 2 sizes too big. It had started as a dare, one of those ridiculous, let's do something wild moments we always had. One minute we were sipping cheap cocktails on the strip, joking about how we'd never get married, and the next, the chapel doors swung open, a man in sequined bow tie grinning, and before I knew it, we were kneeling in front of him, giggling through fake vows, the words, "I promise to tolerate your terrible taste in music," making us snort laugh, and a cheap plastic ring slid onto my finger. I remember thinking, this is absurd, absolutely ridiculous, totally fake. Just another story for our friends to roast us about later. And Ryan, ever the dramatic one, kissed me on the cheek, or maybe the lips, I couldn't even tell anymore, and whispered, "I solemnly swear to never let you win at Mario Kart again." We both collapsed into laughter, tears forming in the corners of our eyes, and I promised myself I'd never, ever think about this seriously. We walked out of the chapel into the bright Vegas sun, the neon signs buzzing overhead, and high-fived strangers who clearly judged us but also seemed entertained. Best weekend. Ever, I said, shaking my head, the ridiculousness still sinking in. Ryan just grinned, tossing his arm around my shoulders. Fake marriage, fake vows, fake life skills. But real fun, he said. I laughed, thinking that was the end of it. Little did I know, life was about to play the cruelest joke of all. 3 days later, back home, bills and emails and mundane reality creeping back in, I opened the mailbox and froze. There it was. A thick envelope with my name on it, official, stamped, serious. And then I read the words that made my stomach drop, my hands shake, and my heart leap all at once. Certificate of marriage, State of Nevada. I stared at it like it was a prank. It wasn't. Ryan had gone through the same disbelief I felt. We stared at each other over coffee that morning, silence heavier than any words could be, and I realized that all those jokes, all that laughter, all those fake vows weren't fake at all. Legally, we were married, and suddenly my mind was a whirlwind of panic, curiosity, and something I wasn't ready to admit yet, a secret thrill at the thought that maybe, just maybe, I didn't hate it. Would you ever jokingly get married with your best friend for a laugh? The moment we realized we were legally married, Ryan and I didn't know whether to laugh, scream, or cry. Honestly, a part of me wanted to throw the certificate across the room and pretend it didn't exist, but another, much louder part of me couldn't stop thinking about him in this new, impossible context. I kept catching myself staring at his profile when he wasn't looking, noticing the way his hair fell over his forehead, the slight crinkle near his eyes when he smiled, and then quickly scolding myself for being ridiculous. It was supposed to be a joke, just a joke. Ryan, of course, reacted in his own dramatic way. He paced around my living room like a caged tiger, muttering things like, "This is insane. Absolutely insane. We are legally married. How did we even—" I wanted to join in the panicked energy, but I couldn't, because somewhere deep down, a tiny, irrational voice whispered that maybe this wasn't entirely the worst thing in the world. We tried to act normal when our friends called that evening. "So what happened in Vegas?" Jenna asked. I laughed nervously. "Oh, you know, the usual. Lost some money, made terrible decisions." Ryan just snorted. But the truth, the terrifying, exciting, absurd truth, was that we were married, and neither of us had said a word about how we were secretly okay with it. Secretly wondering what it would be like to wake up every morning knowing he was mine, legally, even if neither of us admitted it. Every time Ryan leaned over to grab the popcorn or made some sarcastic comment about my terrible taste in movies, I felt my chest tighten. Was it fear? Was it attraction? Was it a mix of both? I didn't want to face it. He definitely didn't either. Our eyes would meet for just a fraction of a second longer than necessary, and both of us would quickly look away. It was ridiculous and yet electric. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying our Vegas antics in my head and the certificate in my hand, thinking about what it meant. We were best friends, sure, but now legally we were partners. Not in a joke anymore, not pretend. And while panic fluttered in my stomach, so did something warmer, sweeter, and more complicated than I was ready to admit. I didn't know how to tell him, and I didn't know if he even felt the same way. So we did what we always did, avoided the topic, made jokes, and pretended nothing had changed. But deep down, I knew one thing. This 24-hour marriage wasn't going to stay just a formality for long. Something was shifting between us, something neither of us dared to name, and the more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it became. Do you think feelings can grow from a fake marriage, or is it too risky? The next few days were a strange mixture of normal life and constant silent reminders that we were married. Everywhere I looked, there was something that made me think of him. The way he made a cup of coffee in the morning, the way he laughed at a dumb joke I hadn't even meant to make, the way his hand brushed mine just a little too long when we passed each other the remote. And of course, he noticed the same things about me, though neither of us admitted it, instead trading sarcastic remarks and playful teasing like nothing had changed. I found myself avoiding the certificate, hiding it in a drawer I knew he couldn't open without noticing. It was dangerous to think about it too much. Dangerous and thrilling. I started to catch myself imagining mornings where he made breakfast for me, nights where we laughed until we cried over some ridiculous movie, evenings holding hands on the couch as if our marriage wasn't the strangest, most sudden thing in the world. I tried to push the thoughts away, but every glance in his direction reminded me that maybe, just maybe, I wanted those imagined moments to be real. Ryan predictably acted like a tornado of distraction. He insisted we go out for drinks to forget all this marriage nonsense. But I could see the way his eyes lingered on me, the way he smiled just slightly too long when I laughed. I felt my pulse quicken and then scolded myself. Ridiculous, ridiculous, don't fall for it. It's a legal accident, nothing more. But the more he teased me about our fake vows, the more I wanted to tease him back, to hold his hand under the table, to tell him that maybe I didn't want this to be fake at all. One evening, after too many beers and far too many confessions about silly fears, Ryan leaned back and said, I think this marriage thing might not be the worst thing ever. I froze mid-laugh, staring at him, trying to gauge if he was joking. Wait, I said, my voice trembling just a little. Are you saying you like it? He shrugged, grin teasing, eyes sparkling. Maybe I do, but don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain. My heart was pounding, my cheeks flushed, and I had to fight the urge to lean over and kiss him just to see if it was real. Well, I said carefully, I might secretly like it too, but also, don't get used to this confession thing. We both laughed, though it was shaky, nervous, and filled with tension that neither of us could fully ignore. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how the joke of a Vegas marriage was no longer a joke at all. Something was happening between us. Something electric, confusing, and undeniable. Neither of us wanted to be the first to admit it, and yet, every small glance, every lingering touch, every shared laugh brought us closer to something real, and I knew deep down that this 24-hour marriage might not stay temporary for much longer. Would you admit your secret crush first, or wait to see if they feel the same? Things were changing, though neither of us wanted to admit it. Every time I saw Ryan, my chest would tighten in ways that had nothing to do with friendship, and every joke we shared seemed to carry an unspoken weight, a hidden meaning that neither of us had the courage to voice. We still laughed, teased, and acted like nothing had changed, but the tiny glances, the accidental touches, and the quiet moments when we were alone told a very different story. It started subtly. He'd brush against my hand while reaching for the same snack, and I'd feel my pulse spike, pretending to be annoyed when really I was thrilled. He'd make a casual comment about how good I looked in my new outfit, and my stomach would flip, my mind racing to figure out if he really meant it or if I was just imagining it. And when he laughed at my dumbest jokes, the ones only he found funny, I realized that the sound of his laugh had become something I craved, something I wanted to hear more than anything. One evening, Ryan suggested we go for a late-night walk. The city was quiet, neon lights reflecting on wet streets from an earlier rain, and everything felt charged with possibility. We walked side by side, shoulders brushing occasionally, exchanging small talk that seemed heavy with unspoken thoughts. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words lodged in my throat. I glanced at him, heart hammering, and caught him staring back, eyes soft, smile uncertain, and I knew he was feeling it too. That same tension, that same mix of excitement and fear. I still can't believe we're legally married, he said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was casual, but I could hear the nervous edge in it. I mean, it's crazy, totally insane. I laughed softly, though my cheeks burned. Yeah, totally insane, but also, kind of, not the worst thing ever. I didn't know why I added the last part, but I couldn't stop myself. His head tilted slightly, a small, knowing smile tugging at his lips. Not the worst thing ever, he repeated, almost teasing, but there was heat in his gaze. I wanted to reach out, take his hand, and see if he would let me. Part of me screamed to just kiss him and stop worrying about whether it was too soon, whether it was right, or whether I was imagining everything. But the other part, the part that still feared ruining our friendship, froze. He took a step closer, and I felt the electricity of being on the edge of something dangerous but thrilling. I guess we're stuck together for now, he said, tone teasing but softer than usual, and my heart skipped. Stuck together, legally married, secretly hoping we both wanted more. I nodded, swallowing hard, smiling, and realizing that the lines between friendship and something much more had started to blur. And I knew that the next time one of us made a move, everything would change forever. Would you risk a friendship for the chance at love? The following week was a blur of awkward glances, subtle touches, and moments where our laughter felt heavier, charged with more than just friendship. Every time Ryan leaned closer to help me with something, or brushed my hair out of my face, I felt a jolt of electricity, and I knew he was feeling it too. Neither of us spoke about it, of course. Pretending everything was normal had become our coping mechanism, but the tension was impossible to ignore. One evening, we stayed late at my apartment, trying to figure out the logistics of, the marriage. Paperwork, licenses, signatures, the boring stuff. But somehow, even while handling legal documents, we couldn't stop stealing glances at each other, smiling at stupid inside jokes or pretending we didn't notice how close we were sitting. I felt my heart racing every time our knees touched under the table, and I could tell he was equally aware, shifting slightly, his hand hovering near mine, neither of us daring to cross the invisible line. Then came the first real test, a conversation I wasn't prepared for. I had been venting about a stressful day, talking too much, and he suddenly reached out, taking my hand in his. My breath caught. You know, he said softly, this whole thing, this marriage, maybe it's not such a bad idea. I froze, heart hammering, staring at his hand holding mine. My mind screamed at me to pull away, to remind him it was crazy, but my body betrayed me, relaxing into his touch. Ryan, I whispered, almost trembling. You mean, you don't hate it? I don't hate it, he admitted, voice low, eyes locked on mine. I've been trying to convince myself it's ridiculous, but I can't stop thinking about it, about you. I felt a flush rise to my cheeks, a mix of panic and excitement. Me too, I confessed quietly, barely above a whisper. I've been trying not to, but I can't either. For a moment, the world disappeared. Just us, two best friends who had joked through a Vegas chapel and suddenly realized their feelings were real, undeniable, and terrifying. The air between us was thick, charged with something neither of us could fully name, and I knew this was the turning point. Everything had changed, but just as quickly as the moment appeared, reality hit. The absurdity of our situation, legally married, emotionally tangled, terrified of what this meant, crashed back in. We pulled back slightly, laughing nervously, pretending it was casual, even though our hearts were pounding and the air felt electric. That night, lying in bed, I replayed every word, every touch, every glance, realizing that nothing would ever be the same. We had crossed the first threshold, admitting to ourselves, quietly, secretly, that maybe we wanted this marriage to be more than a joke. And deep down, I knew the next step, whether to act on it, confess, or take the risk, would determine everything. Would you risk a friendship to explore a romantic relationship? After that night, everything felt different. Even the simplest interactions carried weight, and every glance seemed to say what neither of us could speak out loud. Ryan had always been my best friend, my partner in crime for every ridiculous adventure, but now he felt like something more, something I wanted desperately yet feared to claim. I caught myself staring at him across the room, memorizing the curve of his smile, the way his eyes lit up when he laughed, and the subtle way he leaned closer when I was speaking, as if he couldn't help it. One evening, we ended up staying late at my apartment again, watching a movie neither of us really wanted to see. The room was dark except for the flicker of the TV, shadows dancing on the walls, and I could feel the tension humming between us like electricity. Ryan reached over to grab a blanket, and his hand brushed mine. We froze, fingers lingering just slightly, and for a heartbeat, I imagined what it would feel like to close the distance to let my lips meet his. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly, voice low, hesitant. "Of course," I whispered back, trying not to tremble. He swallowed, eyes searching mine. "Do you ever think about us? About being more than friends?" My heart nearly stopped. I wanted to laugh nervously, deny it, pretend it was ridiculous, but instead, I felt a surge of courage, a need to be honest, if only for a moment. "Yes," I admitted, barely above a whisper. "I think about it all the time. I've been trying not to, but I can't." Relief and something deeper flashed across his face, a warmth I had never noticed before, a vulnerability I hadn't expected. "Me too," he said softly. "I've been trying to convince myself it's silly, that we shouldn't, but I've been lying to myself. I want this. I want you." My chest tightened, a mix of fear and exhilaration. Here we were, legally married, on the edge of something neither of us had anticipated, and yet it felt inevitable, like every step we had taken together had been leading to this moment. I laughed softly, nervously, because it was absurd and terrifying and perfect all at once. Ryan leaned closer, and I didn't move away. His hand found mine again, this time holding firmly, anchoring me. "So," he whispered, a teasing smile tugging at his lips. "What do we do now?" I smiled back, feeling my own courage build. "I think," I said slowly, letting the words linger, "we stop pretending this is a joke and see where it actually goes." The tension broke, replaced by laughter, nervous but genuine, and a shared understanding that everything had changed. We were married, we were best friends, and maybe, just maybe, we were falling in love. That night, I fell asleep with my hand still in his, my heart racing, knowing that the days ahead would be full of uncertainty, excitement, and emotions I had no idea how to handle. But for the first time, I didn't want to run away. Would you take a risk on love if it meant possibly changing your entire friendship? It happened on a Saturday evening, the kind of night where the city seemed quieter, almost as if it was holding its breath along with us. Ryan and I had gone out for a casual dinner, something normal to distract ourselves from the chaos of realizing we were legally married. But nothing about us had been normal lately, and I could feel it in every glance, every laugh, every brush of his hand against mine. After dinner, we walked along the river, the city lights reflecting in the water, casting gold and silver streaks across his face. He was quiet, unusually quiet, and I could sense the tension building between us, that charged feeling that had been simmering since Vegas. My heart pounded with anticipation, and I realized I had no idea how I'd handle what might happen next. "Hey," he said softly, stopping to look at me, eyes searching, unreadable. "I know we joked about this marriage being fake, but now I don't think it's fake at all." I swallowed hard, my pulse racing. I feel the same," I admitted, my voice trembling, though I tried to sound calm. "I've been trying not to think about it, but I can't." His eyes softened, and in that moment, something shifted. He stepped closer, just slightly, enough that our shoulders brushed and I felt the electricity spike through me. His hand found mine, holding it gently, tentatively, like he was testing the waters. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. Every part of me wanted this, wanted him. Then, almost instinctively, he leaned in. My breath caught, my heart raced, and I closed the small distance between us. Our lips met in a kiss that was both hesitant and full of pent-up emotion, a release of weeks of tension, nervousness, and unspoken desire. It was soft at first, testing, but then it deepened, urgent yet careful, like we were discovering a new world together. When we finally pulled back, we were both laughing nervously, breathless, cheeks flushed. "Well," I whispered, my heart still racing, "I guess that changes everything." Ryan grinned, leaning his forehead against mine. "Yeah," he said softly, "but I don't think it's a bad thing at all." We walked the rest of the river silently, hands entwined, feeling the quiet thrill of crossing the line we had both feared for so long. For the first time, the joke of a Vegas marriage didn't feel ridiculous. It felt inevitable, like this moment had been waiting for us all along. That night, lying in bed, replaying the kiss over and over, I realized that life had taken a wild, unexpected turn. We were married, yes, but more importantly, we were together, in a way that went beyond friendship or accident. And while uncertainty still lingered, I felt a warmth, a sense of rightness, in letting this new chapter unfold. For the first time, I was excited to see where it would go, knowing that no matter how strange or sudden it had started, this marriage, this love, might just be exactly what we both needed. Have you ever felt the tension with a friend finally become something real? After that first kiss, everything changed, though we still try to act normal in front of the world. At work, at dinner with friends, even on errands, we laughed, teased, and joked just like before, but underneath it all was a current neither of us could ignore. Every touch lingered longer than necessary, every glance held a spark, and every conversation carried the weight of things left unsaid. Living with Ryan became different. I found myself noticing little things I'd never paid attention to before in the way he absent-mindedly tucked his hair behind his ear, the way his voice softened when he talked to me, the way he remembered the tiniest details about me, even when I thought I hadn't mentioned them. And I realized I had been doing the same, watching him, noticing him, appreciating him in ways I had never admitted, even to myself. We still argued, of course. Friends would be friends, and tension still led to playful bickering. But the fights were sweeter now, lighter, carrying a teasing edge that neither of us could resist. And every time we touched, brushing hands in the kitchen, sitting too close on the couch, my heart would leap, reminding me that this marriage, this strange legal twist of fate, was no longer a joke. One evening, we were cooking dinner together, music playing softly in the background, and Ryan leaned over to taste the sauce I was stirring. His shoulder pressed against mine, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. "You're making it too spicy," he said, teasing, though his eyes held something deeper. "Maybe I like it spicy," I replied, teasing back, trying not to let my voice tremble. We laughed, but the laughter was charged, and I could see him holding back, just like I was, the desire hovering between us, unspoken but undeniable. I wanted to tell him, to admit how much I was falling for him, how much I wanted him not just as a best friend, not just as a husband on paper, but as something real, something permanent. And I knew he felt the same. Every time our hands brushed, every time our eyes met a second too long, he was speaking a language only we understood, a language of desire, affection, and fear of ruining what we already had. That night, lying in bed, I found myself thinking about the absurdity of our situation. We had joked through a Vegas chapel, laughed at fake vows, and somehow stumbled into a love I hadn't expected. And yet, despite the uncertainty, despite the risk of ruining a lifelong friendship, I felt calmer than I had in years. Because for the first time, I realized that this, us, was real, messy, unpredictable, and perfect in its own way. I drifted to sleep with Ryan's hand in mine, heart racing, wondering how long we could pretend, how long we could keep hiding behind jokes, and hoping, secretly, desperately, that neither of us would ever have to let go. Would you risk a lifelong friendship for a chance at real love? It all came to a head one Friday evening. Ryan and I had been invited to a friend's wedding, a lavish, romantic event with all the cliches we'd joked about countless times. I should have been excited, but instead my stomach twisted into knots. The idea of being surrounded by couples, of being reminded of how suddenly, absurdly, we were legally married, made my chest ache in a way I couldn't explain. Ryan noticed my mood immediately. "You okay?" he asked, his brow furrowing, his hand brushing mine lightly on the way to our table. I nodded, forcing a smile, though I knew he saw through it. That was the thing about Ryan. He always saw through me, even when I tried to hide behind jokes or casual indifference. The night went on, laughter, dancing, and endless champagne flowing, and I couldn't help but notice how many couples seemed effortless, how easy it looked for them to be in love. And suddenly I panicked. Did Ryan and I really belong in that world? Were we a joke, a legal mistake masquerading as something serious? Or were we actually capable of something lasting, something real? I excused myself to the balcony, the cool night air hitting my face, and Ryan followed, his expression concerned. "Talk to me," he said softly, eyes searching mine. I took a deep breath, knowing the truth couldn't stay buried any longer. "I'm scared," I admitted, voice trembling. "I don't know if we can do this. I don't know if we should. What if we ruin everything?" He took my hands in his, holding them firmly, grounding me. "I'm scared too," he whispered. "But I also know that I've never wanted something more in my life than this, much than you. And I don't want to let fear decide for us." My heart pounded, tears threatening to spill. And I realized in that moment that the fear, the doubt, the absurdity of our Vegas marriage, none of it mattered. What mattered was us, what we had, and the love we'd been hiding from ourselves and the world. He leaned closer and I didn't pull away. "So," he said, voice low, almost teasing, "are we doing this? Really doing this?" I smiled, heart swelling with a mix of relief and exhilaration. "Yes," I whispered, barely audible. "We're doing this." And in that moment, with the city light shimmering behind him, hands clasped tightly, hearts racing, I realized something I had been too scared to admit until now, that the 24-hour marriage, the Vegas joke, the absurd accident that had brought us together, had led us to something far more beautiful and real than either of us could have imagined. For the first time, I felt a calm certainty, a thrill and a peace, all at once, knowing that whatever came next, we were in it together, legally, emotionally, and fully. Would you take a leap of faith with someone you secretly loved, even if it scared you? After that night on the balcony, everything changed. Ryan and I returned from the wedding hand in hand, hearts racing, smiles that refused to fade, and a sense of certainty I hadn't known before. The fear that had once held us back, the absurdity, the worry, the what-ifs, had melted away in the warmth of that shared confession. We were married, yes, legally bound by an accident in Vegas, but more importantly, we were choosing each other every day, intentionally, wholeheartedly. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Ryan humming in the kitchen. I wrapped myself in a blanket, watching him from the doorway, and my heart swelled with something so tender it almost hurt. He turned, eyes meeting mine, and smiled that grin that had always made my chest flutter. "Morning," he said softly. "Married life treating you well so far?" I laughed, rolling my eyes, but the warmth in my chest was unmistakable. "So far," I admitted, walking over and slipping my hand into his. "But I think it's going to get a lot better." He pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine. "I've been waiting for this," he whispered, "for us to stop pretending, to finally admit that this isn't a joke, that it's real, that we're real." And in that moment, it hit me. All the absurdity of Vegas, the fake vows, the ridiculous chapel, the laughter and the nervous teasing, it had led us here. To this quiet morning, to this gentle certainty, to a love that had been waiting under the surface all along. Days turned into weeks, and every shared smile, every lingering touch, every stolen kiss reinforced what I had already known. This was meant to be. Living with Ryan, laughing with him, teasing him, loving him, It all felt effortless now, a natural extension of our friendship transformed into something infinitely deeper. We didn't need grand gestures or dramatic declarations. We had the little moments, waking up to coffee together, holding hands while running errands, laughing until our sides hurt, comforting each other in quiet ways that only we understood. And slowly, the world began to catch up to what we had already realized, that our accidental marriage had become something beautiful, something lasting, something we both wanted more than anything. One night, sitting on the couch wrapped in a blanket, Ryan looked at me with that soft, vulnerable expression that had always made my heart melt. "So, married life?" he asked, teasing, but with a depth that made my chest tighten. I smiled, leaning into him. "Married life," I whispered, "is perfect, because it's with you." He kissed my forehead gently, holding me close. "Then let's never undo this," he said. I nodded, heart full, realizing that the joke of a Vegas marriage had turned into the greatest adventure of my life. And for the first time, I was certain of one thing. Sometimes, love finds you in the most unexpected ways, and when it does, it's worth taking every risk, embracing every moment, and never letting go. Because forever had started, and it was ours. Would you take a chance on something that seems crazy if it could lead to true happiness?